Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of East Got Game, where we give you the X's, the O's, and the insights of the NBL One East competition. Thank you for joining us tonight live on YouTube and Instagram. And remember, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Instagram and Facebook, all at East Got Game. Or if you like to listen to us a little bit later, you can continue to find our episodes on your preferred streaming platforms. On this week's episode, we'll be covering our East Got Game Game of the Week, our top performances of the round, and have a very special guest interview to wrap up the episode. But first, I have to introduce my co-host. It is the iconic, it is the infamous Lockie France. How are you going, Lockie?
I'm great, Gwen. That's the second time I've been called infamous in the last few days, so it must be factual.
Yeah, sounds like you're getting a pretty strong reputation down there in NBL One East, and I mean, by the sounds of it so far, a good one.
Well, hopefully. What can I say? I try.
What was it like this weekend down in NBL One East? I believe you had 2 games to commentate this weekend. Is that right?
Well, 2 games, 1 game night. So I just had Sutherland v Bankstown, which of course was a sellout at the Shark Tank. Kawatnoi's debut for the Sutherland Sharks, and the return of Vanessa Panousis as well for the Sharks, which was couldn't have come at a better time, and it was absolutely jumping. They put on a signing session afterwards, and it was just a great night at the basketball.
Yeah, it looks like a ripper, and it looks like a lot of people came out, especially to see Vanessa and Kawatnoi's debut for the Sharks. Or I shouldn't say debut for Vanessa Panousis. I should say her return. Just in time as well for the Sharkies, it looks like.
Yes, definitely. Having started 2-0, definitely needed to get a win on the board, and managed to do so against Bankstown in the Georges River Rumble, as I like to call it. Trying to make that name stick.
I hope you've got a list of all of these cool nicknames that you're giving particular matchups. Yeah, of course. I don't know why I doubted it or would question that, because you were a very well organized individual.
Sometimes.
But before we kick off our regular programming, you've done a lot of hard work behind the scenes to bring us some headlines from around the East after round 2. Three. After round 3.
Round 3.
Woof. I mean, we've been waiting an eternity for it to start, and it's already racing past round 3. So I'll leave it to you to start us off with some of the headlines of the week.
Well, I think one of the biggest ones of the week would be the Newcastle Falcons men getting a win, 84-68 over the Illawarra Hawks of all teams. I mean, Newcastle could barely get out of their own way in the first couple of rounds, and they came out firing. Kobe Shannon had a big 20-point game, and to keep Illawarra to 68 points with that lineup, that's impressive in and of itself. And then to roll to a 16-point win just in time for the Falcons.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite a remarkable turnaround just in a couple of weeks of the competition opening from the Falcons. So, yeah, props to them. I would love to go back and review that game when we have time, perhaps, to see what it really took to not only beat Illawarra, but to keep them at such a low score, as you mentioned, which is, quite a surprise given the Illawarra Hawks lineup. So, yeah, big props to the Newcastle Falcons.
Yeah. And, I mean, this is just following me around. This whole team's trailing big after a quarter, because Sutherland were trailing 25-11 after a quarter against Bankstown. You talk about a team that couldn't get out of their own way. That was Sutherland in the first quarter. But they ended up winning at 83-66. So from then on, it was a 72-45 game. And we know the Sharkies, they love their 5 starters or 5 players in double figures. That's what won them the title in 2023. And that's what they had this game. They had Lockie Hutchison, Bailey MacArthur, Kouat-Noi, Jason Spurgeon, and Luke Jamison all in double figures. Jamison leading the way with 16 points, and Spurgeon and Jamison both had double-doubles. And Luke Jamison, that's another player to put on my new list of new favourites, which is growing at a rapid rate. Trying to find one every game.
I can't see you having any issue with finding a new favourite every game either. So, and how do you think Kouat-Noi was able to slot into that Sutherland Sharks team? I mean, does he have much playing history with any of the other players other than Jason Spurgeon?
Not a lot as far as I know. He definitely has a lot of high-level playing experience, though. And I think at the start, he was just kind of, feeling his way out, just trying to, fit in where he could, make things happen. But, I mean, eventually the class just shines through. He finished with 14 points, 8 rebounds, and he just attracts defenders and attracts attention. And I don't think he's going to have too much problem slotting in. You got to remember as well that the Sutherland head coach is King's assistant coach, Sean Roger. So, plenty of connection there anyway.
And tell me a little bit about Bankstown, that game. So we reviewed their game against North in round 1 for our East Got Game of the week. And we were really impressed with what we saw at both ends of the floor. Did you see similar signs against Sutherland in this game, or what did you see from Bankstown?
They started, they obviously started really well to be up 25-11, but the shooting just went away from them. I felt they shot. I'm just looking at the stats here just to try to back up my own point. They shot 60% from the field in the first quarter, but then by the third quarter they were only hitting 28% from 2-point range. And could barely buy a 3 after the first quarter. Just the shooting really letting them down. And honestly, they got outrun a bit by Luke Jamison. The guy he's been out of basketball, like high-level basketball, for a while, but he's been playing UBL and played a bit of NEFL, which is the old second division below the AFL. So he's plenty mobile, and he showed it out on court, just really getting up and down court. And I think Bankstown got caught out a little bit a couple of times. But I think really more just the field goal percentage could have been a little bit higher. And they had some pretty good looks. It doesn't help when Jason Cadee goes 0 of 7 from 3 and Andre Walford goes 3 of 12, which I think we pointed out in the call that Dre was shooting pretty well at the start, but then it just fell away. But I don't think that's something they'll have to worry about on too many occasions. But it just showed that if they do have those kind of nights, they're going to have to find other ways to get it working. But they do have Jalen Galloway and Dominic Key still to join the team.
Oh, yeah, that is true. That is true. They are deep. They are rolling in the deep. Bankstown Bruins. Yeah, so it's early days for them. But yeah, lots of positive signs for them. Sometimes we like to say as well that it's good for a team to get tested early in the season so they can make those adjustments a little bit quicker. And so it's not kind of biting them on the butt and the back end of the season where it's likely going to count more. But yeah, very, very would have been a great game to call.
It was so much fun. Especially with it being the home team falling in a hole early and coming back. The energy was just great. I try to keep my calls kind of neutral. I know I'm the Sutherland caller, but I also accept that most people who want to watch Sutherland will be in the stadium, and it'd probably be more away team fans watching the stream. So, but yeah, real fun game to call.
And now with the final headline for the men's competition, you got a chance to have a look at Iggy Mitchell on the weekend as well for the North Bears. What did you see?
Oh, well, I just saw that, it wasn't the most efficient performances shooting-wise, but he had 2 double-doubles, I mean, North got a win against Crusaders on the Sunday as well, which is big. And yeah, he had 11 and 13 with a couple of assists against Canberra in a game which North unfortunately lost. But I mean, losing to Canberra is not exactly something to get too down about, I don't think. I think a lot of teams are going to lose to Canberra this year. But yeah, then coming out and helping North to a 77-65 win over Central Coast, 15 and 10. A couple of assists, had a steal and a block, just getting involved in every way. And yeah, the shooting could be a little better, but definitely things to look forward to. And then, of course, Hunter Goodrick, as always, putting up big numbers. So starting to look like those two big name signings are really, hopefully, starting to come together for North.
Yes, and I think, to be fair to Iggy Mitchell, he has had a long time away from the game, so understandably it would take some time to get used to, the pace and his confidence, and probably mentally as well, coming back from a couple of injuries, but all looking like promising signs for Iggy Mitchell and for Norths. And like we've said before, under coach Tom Garlop, anything is really possible, because he is probably one of the most winningest, I shouldn't say winningness because that's not even a word, but definitely one of the most successful coaches in NBL 1 East, whether it's in East, whether it's outside of East, juniors, on coaching state teams, Australian teams. Very successful coach. And I went to say winningness as well, because I feel like I've certainly heard that term used in professional broadcast, so it was a little bit of
use it, or did they use it when they were talking about Gino Auriemma during the draft today?
Did they actually? I tried to watch the WNBA draft at work today on the sly.
They are. No, I didn't get to watch it. I just had the draft cast up, but apparently they did talk about him a fair bit.
Our friends at Ball Don't Lie Australia on Instagram Live commenting, no loser-ringest coaches. I hope that I have pronounced that correctly, but Mal's certainly picking up what we're putting down. But yeah, just back on the WNBA draft that was on today. I actually remembered it was on, so tick. And then when I was frantically sending a whole bunch of emails, I'm lucky at work I have 2 monitors, so I tried to put the draft streaming on YouTube on one monitor, but it kept cutting out. So I'm not sure if it was something where the stream was available and our internet at work is really weak, so it kept cutting out, or if for some reason we weren't in Australia supposed to watch it on YouTube. But that was my only outlet. But
it was on KO in Australia, so
so I wondered if it was a licensing thing.
Yeah,
but I did manage to watch a little bit of the start, then I had to duck away, and in that time I was away from my computer. I missed Georgia Amore getting announced, drafted 6 to Washington. And it only dawned on me today when I looked at Jade Melbourne's Instagram stories that Jade Melbourne and Georgia are now going to be on the same WNBA team. And that is going to be my version of the Bash Brothers from the Mighty Ducks. Jade Melbourne, Georgia Amore, Washington Mystics. Let's go. Shut it down.
As a Phoenix Mercury fan, I really, that was my sole interest in the draft was with Georgia, because Phoenix, do we even have a pick? I don't think so. I think we traded them all away.
Yeah, I don't think he did, actually. Bizarre.
Oh, well.
We digress, though. I mean, going from one women's basketball league to another, let's get back and we'll have some headlines about the women's competition in NBL 1 East. And as we already mentioned, Vanessa Panousis is back for the Sutherland Sharks. And in her return against the Bankstown Bruins at home, she had 24 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists in an 85-70 win. But it looks like heading over the other side of Sydney, Maddie O'Hare with the North Bears is shooting the lights out in round 3. Did you happen to catch any of Maddie's games this weekend at all, or any highlights, Lockie?
I haven't yet, but I definitely am going to, because 12 of 17 for 31 points. That's real good. I mean, we know what Maddie can do, but still, when you see the numbers on the paper like that, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so like you said, 12 from 17 for 31 points, and that was against the Canberra Nationals. So, and North had a doubleheader this weekend, playing at home on the Saturday against Canberra and then away against the Central Coast Crusaders on the Sunday. And they got the win on the road as well. So they are the one team in the competition that are currently undefeated.
They are. And the thing about Maddie is she's always been known as someone who can really get to the rack because she's got bounce, she's got speed, but she shot 7 of 10 from 3 with point range in that game. She is really scoring at every level.
And I think that's certainly an area of her game that's improved probably the most in the last 2 seasons, I would say, at least the last 2 seasons. Her 3-point percentage is definitely improved. I wouldn't have picked her as a 3-point shooter back in the day when I used to attempt to play against her when she was still playing for Hornsby. She was certainly someone that was always super quick and speedy and tough on dribble penetration, but knowing that she wasn't the strongest 3-point shooter, you could take a step off. But now she's scoring from everywhere.
The Maddie O'Hare at Hornsby year. Gee, that was it's a strange times in the history of Waratah League.
Yeah, almost feels like a whole different time, right? A whole different time and a whole different place. And then this one is a rumor on the rumor mill. I haven't had it confirmed by club or player, but I believe that one of our personal favorites and hometown heroes, Shez Kalia from Hills Hornets, may be out for the season with an ACL injury. I've been told that it happened in the first round in that game against Inner West Bulls that ended up being called off.
Oh.
Yes. Because due to the playing conditions, it was called off, but that may have also led to an injury. So this is all, I will want to remind listeners again, this is all rumors and hearsay that someone has contacted us about through our Instagram page. But yeah, so we're hoping that the rumors are not true. We're hoping that Shez is okay and that she's able to return to court for the 2025 season, because we were so excited to have her back home.
Yeah, legit. And she was like just going to lift Hills to that next level.
Yeah, she was such a great compliment. She had Maddie Hare back as well after they had such great success together for Hills Youth League a few years ago. She would have been a great compliment to Jade Kirasome. It's going to be a big loss for Hill if Shez isn't able to return. So watch this space. We'll try and find out any other information if we can. And if anyone's able, just give us a heads up. DM us on our Instagram page at eScottGame. But next weekend, it sounds like it's time for a break already, Lockie.
A break already? What am I going to do with myself?
Hopefully rest.
I'll try.
As what people may like to do when it's a long weekend. It is Easter long weekend coming up this weekend, meaning there are no games in the NBL 1 competition nationwide. And we had a bit of a running joke on the weekend that by the time the East have 3 rounds and a break, and then I think another round, only then does NBL 1 North start. So NBL 1 East is so far ahead of North that they've already had time for a break. But then after that Easter break, that rolls straight into the Anzac rounds. Yes,
or a lot of teams will have double headers because we'll have a lot of, especially with Anzac Day falling on a Friday, we'll have a lot of Monday, Friday, Sunday double headers. Interestingly, Illawarra played Newcastle again after playing last weekend. Which is bizarre, but it is what it is. Best chance to get revenge. Just turn around and beat them in the next game.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you think Illawarra are going to get the split?
Hey, sure. Why not?
Be a hell of a split too, given that Newcastle not only beat Illawarra, but they beat them away. That's also a huge achievement. That was away, wasn't it?
Now you're testing me.
Now I'm testing you. Hold on. No, it was at home. It was at home.
It was at home.
Yeah. So Newcastle winning at home. Illawarra have the chance now already to play them on the 26th, like you said. Yeah, so it's going to be a huge weekend that ends round 4 on that Anzac Day weekend. Especially for
Illawarra, because they've got to play Freeway Cup on the Friday against Sutherland in Sutherland.
Oh, that is a big weekend. Yeah. And what games will you be commentating? Because it looks like you may be a little bit stretched.
I will be at that game, that Friday Sutherland Illawarra game, of course. But then I will be at Comet Stadium for Comets versus Maitland on the Sunday.
Awesome. So you've got another big weekend calling some very close games.
I texted saying, do you need me to call on Sunday? And they were like, yes. No, they said, let me check. And I said, when I say, do you need me? I mean, I really want to come and commentate on Maitland.
Yeah. I'm just going to be direct with you and say, I'm there. If you need me, I'm there, but I want to be there. So all you need to do is just say yes.
And they said yes.
And they said yes. Excellent. Interestingly as well, that Comets Maitland game, so the men are actually on first on Sunday, the 27th at 1 p.m. and the women are on second at 3 p.m.
Yeah, they share it around a bit at Comets. Sometimes men first, sometimes women first.
Yeah, that's what we like to see.
Which is absolutely hell for my preparation.
Yeah.
So I'm so used to writing the women's on my first 2 pages and the men's on the second 2.
Oh, yeah. It's just the way your brain gets in those routines, and then you have to switch the routines. We don't like it. We don't like change.
I don't like change.
I don't like change. Deep cut Family Guy quote. Okay. All right. So they're the headlines from round 3 of NBL 1 East. And now it's time for our East Got game of the week. And this week we decided to review the Central Coast Crusaders men taking on the Sydney Comets, speaking of Comets men, at Breakers Indoor Sports Stadium on the New South Wales Central Coast. It was kind of an interesting game. I think I was expecting it to be a little bit closer in the end than it was. But I think the right team won in the end. Before I get too much into the nitty gritty of my analysis, tell me what you saw, Lockie.
I saw it was a tale of one team that didn't turn the ball over but couldn't put it in the basket versus another team that was only too happy to turn the ball over. But when they shot it well and they got good looks and used them well. And, we talk about, and I mention all the time, it doesn't matter what your shooting percentage is if you give the other team 20 more looks. Well, Comets gave Central Coast plenty more looks, but this time shooting percentage won out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if we look at it statistically, the Central Coast Crusaders shot at 33.3% overall, and the Sydney Comets shot at 43.75% overall. Now, I'm glad that you kind of mentioned in terms of the shots taken in terms of opportunity as well, because I feel like at the end of the day, what also contributed to the Sydney Comets winning this game over the Crusaders was their shot selection, or perhaps maybe the Crusaders, or how would I put it, controversial shot selection, perhaps.
Yes, it felt like Crusaders were willing to settle for tougher looks than they needed to. And
yes,
Comets were not, or perhaps weren't forced to be as much. It wasn't always 2 extra passes or something like that. It was players getting better opportunities, particularly when you look at someone like Sharif Saipeo, who had, I think, 15 points in 19 minutes. He was just getting what he wanted. He didn't have to go looking for the easy shot. A lot of the time, he was just getting what he wanted. He's just strong and shifty and used those attributes together really well. In another game where it felt at times that, like I mentioned in Comets Illawarra Men, that he sort of just had to take over at times. He had to just get in there and, rev everybody up, and sometimes it's with words, sometimes it's with actions, and in this occasion, it was with his actions.
Yeah, I agree. And like, if we take a look at the stats, as you mentioned, the turnovers before, so just for the listeners they can visualize it, Crusaders only had 10 turnovers, which is great, and Sydney Comets giving up 22 turnovers, so potentially an extra 12 shots. But then it does pretty much convert into that, because Crusaders ended up taking 78 shots and Sydney only taking 64. So the maths there kind of works out. But yeah, as we were talking about shot selection and like you said, Crusaders sometimes settling for those really more difficult shots. So what I was noticing with the Crusaders is that, straight out of the blocks, super quick. Super quick. That brand of Crusaders basketball was demonstrated from the first tip-off, transition, super quick, sharing the ball, happy days. It's when they got stuck in their half-court offense that things started to unravel just a little bit, or maybe not so much unravel, it just started to become very stagnant. So there were definitely possessions where I couldn't tell what they were running. Sometimes it was just motion, which is fine. But then there were other times where I think it just stopped. And I think some of their main offensive threats on the Crusaders felt like they had to put the ball under their wing and do everything themselves. So that's when you're seeing the likes of Elijah Washington and Garrick Young perhaps putting up some shots that were a lot tougher than what they're probably used to in the first couple of rounds. And, I think maybe that just comes with that scorer's mentality. As an individual, I need to see the ball go through the net for my confidence, but I also feel the responsibility to keep my team into it. And to be fair, Washington scored like the first 10 points for the Crusaders. He was on fire. He started a lot of the game shooting at 100%, and then I think he ended the game with a pretty healthy percentage. It was 50% overall, so 10 from 20. But again, 20 is a lot of shots. So of that 78 total, Washington, Garrick, and Amir took 54 of the 78 shots.
Yeah, and I mean, that 10 of 20 for Washington, that's very front heavy, because he was 8 of 12 at one stage, which I made sure to write that down because I'd seen the 10 of 20 and I was like, well, if he's 8 of 12, that means he's only hitting 2 of 8 for the rest of the game. And that kind of coincided with when Comets kind of blew out the score of the third quarter, which I think was 31 to 18. And it was it was all in the back half of the third quarter, because the first part of the third quarter was really close. But going back to the start of the game, in my notes, I've got Comets 2 early turnovers. Scribbled that out, 3. Scribbled that out again, 4. I think Washington had more turnovers than even Washington had made buckets in the first couple of minutes.
That's a hell of a statistic.
Yeah.
When we're comparing shot selection, number of shots taken, and turnovers, that's a hell of a comparison.
Yeah. But because I think Comets were trying to be kind of methodical. I think maybe Anthony Mundine, taking point guard duties, was trying to, be a facilitator, take on the role of the point guard. But I think he sort of just needs to let himself be himself, even when he is tasked with primary ball handler duties. There's no reason to shy away from your abilities as a scorer just because you're bringing the ball up. I know, he's still waiting on Bawali to come back, but once he sort of got in a rhythm and decided to play his own game again, it started looking a lot better for Comets.
Yeah, I actually wrote a note about Anthony Mundine in this game, that he showed a lot more maturity compared to how he was playing last season. I think in some ways he's a little bit more sure of himself and more confident with his skill set. But then in other ways, I think he needs to now refine his decision-making of what to use when. But I really liked how much control he took over this game at both ends of the floor, particularly in the half-court offense for Comets. Like, I felt like in this game he was one of the most level-headed, mature players out there. He was a great anchor for their team. There were a couple of times where things would go a little bit wayward for the Comets in their half-court offense, where some particular players were probably holding on for it and trying to do a little bit too much a lot of the time, and sometimes coming up with a score or a foul, but other times just not utilizing the rest of their teammates. But yeah, Mundine I thought was really solid. And a matchup that I probably overlooked, Mundine and Luke Cassidy. Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, wasn't that nice to watch?
It really was. And Cassidy against a lot of players actually was really nice to watch. I mean, back to Cassidy Mundine, that was really fun to watch. You just got me. There was one part, I think he took Cassidy he just went up against Obi Che, like defending Obi Che. And it ended up being a foul on the triple team because Obi Che managed to just squirrel his way out of a triple team because he's Obi Che. But just the way Cassidy just was able to pretty much hold him off in the paint until the help arrived. It was really, really good to watch. But it's funny. I just look at my notes and you talk about Mundine, and the notes just keep getting more and more positive as I write down things I see about the game from him. So I start at the top and I'm like, and I get further down and I'm like, he's looking better. And I don't think I could say any better than what you did about Anthony Mundine.
Yeah, his stats for this game, and obviously, like we said, playing a big role in being the anchor and steering the ship. Two nautical metaphors for you in one sentence. But he played 36 minutes, 49 seconds, and he had 16 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and shot at 42.86 overall. Did go with 5 turnovers, but he had 4 assists. So in my brain, that's only 1 turnover. Well, actually, no, it should be steals and turnovers that cancel each other out. But that's okay. Those types of assists are only going to come with time and experience. And it was a very fast-paced game. And he did have Luke Cassidy hassling him for most of the game. So, yeah, I was really, really impressed. I think he's improved a lot in 12 months. And he definitely hasn't reached his ceiling yet. So he's only going to get better and better.
100%.
Yeah. But I feel as well like this Sydney team compared to last team just looks so much more organized than what we saw last season. I mean, last season to this season, this men's roster has the same core. They've done a really great job of being able to retain their star players in Mundine, Che, Bales, Baby Chol, of course, Sinagorak, and then being able to recruit Faketi. Really great core, and Saipea, of course, Sharif. We can't leave out our boy Sharif. But obviously that really great core from last season, and then adding even better pieces. But I felt last season something was missing. I didn't feel comfortable with what they were running, how quickly they were subbing. It always just looked a little bit underdeveloped and out of sync. But this time they looked a lot more organized, a little bit more sure of their roles on offense and who's doing what. But the thing that impressed me the most about the Comets in this game was their half-court defense. Like, completely different from last season. Super proactive, team-orientated. Anytime someone was looking to dribble penetrate from the Crusaders, it was well and truly covered. So no wonder the likes of Young and Washington and Amir was just really having an off day. So I got a feel for the kid. We got to remember he's only 19. So let's give him a chance. He's going to have his off days. But no wonder they had suffered such a tough time getting the shots they like, because the Comets defense was outstanding.
I literally wrote down dudes dribbling into walls. Because at times
Correct.
They were. And I mean, sometimes it was made easier for the defense because Crusaders, I just don't think they were entirely consistent in their screening. Like, you'd watch one possession, this guy had set a perfect pick, and a couple of possessions later, they'd run the same set, and it'd just be half a step off or half a step further out or a little bit different, and it'd just open up an angle for the defense to be right there. And it's like, just do what you did the previous time. And it's not like a play where the player was fighting to get out to the perimeter to set the screen. It was like he was coming up as a trailer, or he was just, he was there, he was in position, he just needed to get it right. And there were just some plays where it just wasn't quite there. And that was when dudes dribbled into walls.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also wrote something similar in my notes where it's like, obviously, your main scorers have already been well scouted and well covered because they're having a tough time getting shots that they want. You got to do something different. Are you running a set? Are you doing any kind of more pick and rolls? Are you what are you going to be focusing on some off-ball action or getting them off a weak side or doing something else to try and provide them with better scoring opportunities, or at least to test out that Comets defense as much as possible. In a similar way that when we reviewed the Newcastle Falcons Albury Wodonga Bandits women's game last week, how we were saying that, the likes of Katie Jones and Riley Luffer were already so well covered and they weren't really comfortable getting Emma Mahadi some extra shots. We had to do something else. The Crusaders had to do something else to generate some better looks because everything was such a grind.
Yeah, and there was one possession where they managed to get Synergoratz off Manholm in a pick and roll. And Manholm had the easiest basket probably of his career. And I think they tried it once or twice. Johnny just sat back, he just immediately adjusted, and then it didn't really happen. I know Lino was in foul trouble, but even when he was out there, it wasn't something they went to a whole lot. And I do think Johnny fairly won that battle. Just the foot speed that Johnny has for a man of his size. He's got foot speed, he's more solidly built, and he's got the IQ and he's got the skills as well. To win that battle. And I mean, there's not a lot of 7-footers in this league. And Johnny's looking to some, I guess Spurgeon's the other one, but even Spurgeon and Johnny, they both like to shoot a three as well. But, I definitely think Johnny won that battle in the paint, especially with we're just looking at the foul count as well, that Lino had 5 fouls in 16 minutes and Johnny played 30 minutes of playing time.
And for an undersized Crusaders, that really hurts. Because Lino being like the primary rim protector and the rest being taller than average, very quick guards when they're going up against the personnel of the Sydney Comets. I think, unfortunately, for that Crusaders men's team, their rim protection and presence under the basket is always going to be the point of exploitation for the season, but especially when your 1 7-footer is fouled out, that's got to hurt. But interesting that you spoke about pick and roll options because in the commentary team for the Crusaders this week was Chris Allback, legendary coach Chris Allback. He actually mentioned during the commentating that the Comets were playing in what we call drops on the pick and roll, where, as you mentioned, Johnny Sinagorak was stepping back. And Chris made the comment that the Crusaders need to look for a different option if their defense is playing drops, like looking for a flare screen instead. And even that, perhaps looking at that flare, even if you're kind of faking it and drawing that help defense out, you're going to have a second option to look at. Just anything else needed to kind of be tried and tested to get these guys easier shots. But I mean, to be fair, the Crusaders did a great job hanging in there. I think, though, it's at times because the Sydney Comets were so much more organized and played with a little bit more conviction and pace on the offensive end. I think sometimes the Crusaders had trouble like maintaining that intensity on defense, like kind of paying it back to Comets without fouling. Because I think sometimes the Crusaders went through these parts of the game where they were playing a little bit too reactive, and perhaps their team defense wasn't as sound as the Comets defense, and the only way to kind of keep up or to bail themselves out was to foul.
Yeah, I mean the foul count is pretty similar, but I mean Obi Che had at least 2 offensive fouls. I'm not sure if they had any others, but as far as defensive fouls, it definitely swung, to the Crusaders having far more. And I mean, Comets getting the. Speaking of Obi Che foul trouble, he only got to play 20 minutes, and they still got the win up.
Yeah, they still looked really good when Obi Che wasn't on the floor because a lot of the offensive possession was going through Obi. There were times where sometimes he was trying to go through 2-3 defenders. And to be fair to the slightly undersized Crusaders, they did a great job standing their ground. And you gave Luke Cassidy, used him as an example earlier. But yeah, sometimes Che was trying to go 2-3 people, lots of calls perhaps not going the way that he probably saw it. So yeah, hence the 2 offensive fouls, seeing more time on the bench. But the Sydney Comets were able to absorb that responsibility and have guys like Sharif step up, especially in the stretch of the game, to keep up the momentum and make sure Sydney got the win. Like, yes, Sharif had 17 points, 2 rebounds and 3 assists in just under 20 minutes. But then you've got guys like Fekete, who had 5 points, 6 rebounds and 2 assists, and just having his presence there, I think, was still enough for the Comets in the absence of Obi Che. So yeah, I think that was probably a really good test for the Comets as well. What's going to happen if Obi's on the bench and they can still win?
They certainly can. And I mean, Ethan Martin-Coney, they got 21 minutes out of him and he had 7 rebounds. I mean, and Sharif, he went to the line 10 times. He's basically daring them to foul him at times.
He's too crafty for the Central Coast.
He's too crafty, and he's too crafty with the size and strength. There was 2 possessions in a row. One, he just bumped the defender and just went up, and then the next possession, the next possession, he fought over a screen, poked it away for the steal, and then got down court and laid it home. So, when you talk about how shifty he is, but in those 2 plays, he's just shown just use his strength and size to manufacture 4 points in the space of 15 seconds. And then he threw that water polo pass cross court into the corner for Anthony Mundine to hit a 3.
He's exactly what the Comets needed. And he went about it his own way as well, which we love about Sharif. He is very true to himself and he still gets the job done.
And I call it a water polo pass, A, because that's what it looked like going across court. But I once saw a water polo state representative playing Waratah League throw a one-handed pass across court, and their teammate could not catch it, and it almost took their head off.
Okay.
So I like to call back to that whenever I can.
And we've actually got a couple of comments on our Instagram Live. The first is from our boys at 2 Feet in the Paint saying, Comets are an overlooked defensive team. Fekete and Chol on the perimeter and Obi and Johnny in the paint. Definitely tick, tick. And we also have a comment on Instagram Live from the head coach of the Central Coast Crusaders men, Coach Miko von Luder, saying, they dared us to foul and we were happy to oblige. You know what? Look, we when we do these game reviews, we are very lucky sometimes that members of the teams, particularly the coaches of the teams that we review, will agree with what we said, which is more a relief than anything that we actually we still need that validation.
It's good. It's
we're
good
on
for
the right track.
syndrome.
Yes, that's right. We need that weekly dose of keeping our imposter syndrome at bay. So yeah, thank you, Coach Miko, for making light of that situation, and you're part of the game as well. Hopefully it doesn't sting, and happy birthday as well for yesterday. But I digress with this game as well. While we're giving Sharif Saipea a shout out for his contribution in under 20 minutes, for the Crusaders in that third quarter, Seth Chapman.
I was about to bring him up. Oh my goodness me.
We don't rehearse this, guys. We don't rehearse this. Lockie and I have just now naturally developed this telepathic ability since podcasting together. We definitely don't rehearse this. Yeah, Seth Chapman, talk to me.
Literally first play of the third quarter, comes out, sets the screen. Garrick Young hits the three. You talked about them being undersized with Lino off the court, and Seth Chapman was like, well, if we're going to be undersized, looks like I'm the big man. I'll go out and, score the ball, grab some boards, do what needs to be done. Just looking at his stats, and though it actually doesn't surprise me, he had 6 rebounds and 7 points in 13 minutes of action. And I don't think he did even touch the court until maybe very late in the second quarter, or maybe not until the third. And yeah, that first screen, I was like, I don't think I've seen that jersey number before. I better go check who that actually is. I was like, okay, that's Seth. And I was like, then I just kept watching him. I was like, just grabbing boards for fun, and yeah, got a couple of baskets and just taking the opportunity with both hands. I loved it.
Yeah, me too. Seth was always one of our favorites when Hamish and I were commentating for the Crusaders. And I'm pretty sure by now he has gotten into medicine. So we could say that Seth Chapman's performance in the third quarter was just what the doctor ordered. You knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming because we have a doctor in NPL soccer, and we say it all the time about her as well. Every time she scores a goal.
It's just too easy. You got to take the low-hanging fruit sometimes.
Exactly.
I'm not going to be ashamed to say it. But yeah, 7 points, 6 rebounds, 13 minutes, shooting 3 from 5 overall. And I really think this is a great example as well of how when they say the bench makes the team, you come in, you do your job, and just that performance is that little bit of energy and injection that your team needs to hold on to hope for the rest of the game and to kind of keep you going, especially in that third quarter where Comets went on a blitz and won that third quarter 31 points to 18. So yeah, good shout out to the likes of Sharif Saipea and Seth Chapman, the ultimate bench players in this game.
Sorry.
More?
Both teams. Central Coast had 13 points off the bench for the game. All 13 were in the third quarter. Comets had 24. Comets had 24 off the bench. 15 were in the third quarter. And how much of those do you reckon were Sharif? Because he lit it up in the third.
All of them. Gobbled it up.
Be close to it. Because I know Jacob Smith had 4 points. I know 2 of those were when he got the mismatch with Dylan T late in the second quarter, when the Crusaders just let him amble up to the free throw line, get the ball, and just head straight back from where he came towards the basket.
Tough, very tough.
Yeah.
I think the other thing about this game in general for me, I feel like both teams are quite similar in their style of play. Like, I think they both want to play quick. I think they both want to get their particular studs, a certain amount of shots. And I think that they were both focusing on not as many sets in the half court as you would traditionally see in an NBL 1 game, particularly an NBL 1 men's game. But I feel like there was a lot of motion and a lot more read and react played by both teams. And I think, just as you said at the start, it just kind of fell to the team that were making more shots and better decisions. But the one criticism I have for each team is about rebounding. So the rebounding stats are, Central Coast Crusaders had 39 rebounds, Comets having 53 for the game, so dominating the boards as well. And having the likes of Fekete and Che and Sinagorak are already going to kind of give you that edge. But what is something I think both teams can improve on is just boxing out. Because even for the Crusaders, who are probably still slightly undersized, boxing out, you can box out anyone. If you box out someone, a 7-foot Sinagorak, and push him physically away from the rim, you're obviously still going to make it very hard for him to gobble up all the rebounds and maybe put him kind of in a position where he might be tempted to do an over the back foul or something. Each team, not a lot of boxing out going on. Look, 10 out of 10 for hustle, 4 out of 10 for boxing out. I feel like a lot of the possession and a lot of the control in this game could have been better maintained if each team boxed out better. There were so many times where there was just a lot of bodies flying everywhere and on the floor, under the rim, people taking charges, people coming for help, but no boxing out. And it ended up being like this AFL-inspired in the air challenge for so many loose balls.
Yeah, and you get the defensive rebound and you sort of just like, where are we? What are we doing here? It's like, if you just get your hand on the ball and get out and run, you can throw an outlet, rather than having, and the longer it pings around up there, the more players get involved and the mosier it becomes, and you just open yourself up to not getting the rebound.
Especially for a team like Crusaders who can be deadly in transition. Transition doesn't start until you gain possession.
Exactly.
So being able to lock down the boxing out, get that possession, off you go to the races, you're going to be harder to beat. And look, shout out to Coach Miko again, who's still watching on our Instagram live. He said, apparently rebounding requires a box out. I better tell the fellas. He said, great work, guys. I'm going to have to call my therapist now. It's like we share this out of love, guys. We share this out of love. We're just saying what we see.
We want everyone to be doing well.
Exactly. This is why we volunteer our time to do a podcast, because we still love the league and we want everyone in the league to do well. 2 feet in the paint, tagging, replying to Coach Miko's last comment about boxing out, saying, you better call Hamish Loader to help save some of those boxing out and rebounding issues. And we've got to give Sharif a shout out. He's joined the Instagram live. But Sharif, you just missed us singing your praises, buddy. Hopefully you can go back onto your preferred streaming platform and listening. But Coach Miko says, we're spot on about the rebounding. Said those exact words in the huddle. So, okay, good. Thank you for keeping our imposter syndrome at bay for another week, Coach. But my final thought, I think, on this game, I talked about the edge that their size in Fekete, Che, and Sinagorak had for the Comets, their half-court organization. But, yeah, for me, it just came down to the Comets' defense was insane. Proactive, lots of help and recover, lots of length as well in that team. Like, there was a couple of defensive possessions where it's between Fekete, Saipea, and Sinagorak, all actively as a team, like stopping the ball from a penetration, full wingspan out. And I got scared. Just watching that, going, damn, That would be intimidating, attempting to score and coming against that wall of defense. But yeah, I think also wanted to give a last shout out to Garrick Young, obviously from the Crusaders. He had 21 points and 12 rebounds, and he shot at 42%. And Elijah Washington, who finished the game with 26 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists at 50% overall, and had to really work for those points.
Yeah, he had a couple of really tough step backs during one of those little scoring runs that he went on. He made some tough baskets, and I mean, without his first half, Crusaders would have been in a bigger hole than they even were.
But yeah, looking forward now, because it wasn't a disastrous. I think it was just a game won and lost for really small, intricate things, but things that I think have a lot of room for improvement for both teams. We've already talked about boxing out for both teams, and we've already talked about for Crusaders just being a little bit more creative in the half-court offense with creating something that's going to be more productive for the team as a whole. Are there any other points that you want to talk about for either team that you'd like to see them improve on in the future of the season?
I think we pretty much covered it. I mean, I like your point about the teams being very similar, because I feel like the Comets are just almost a bit more, just a little bit bigger and a little bit more polished version of the Crusaders. And they know how to use the physical skill set that they have. Like you mentioned, that defense. They know they've got length and they're going to use it. You got Sinagorakin playing drop. You've got, Obi Che is really long, and for Comets, if they just lock in on defense for the next 17 games, the team can go, 17 games plus finals, the team can really go a long way.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really great to see where these teams end up falling, given that they are relatively closely matched in this third round game. And obviously Comets getting the job done. But yeah, just to see how each of their teams' trajectory ends up for the rest of the season after this round will be super, super interesting. And just the last couple of shout outs on our Instagram Live. Our friend James O'Donoghue, the infamous photographer for NBL 1 East, saying that he's a really good rebounder too if anyone needs another player. He's available to be signed on a short-term deal. And we know that he's got some other tools in his tool belt.
Yeah, you've seen his Glory League highlights. Yeah, you can get down to Hills Basketball Stadium on whatever night of the week it is. Watch him hoop.
Oh yeah, he can hit it from beyond the arc. Yeah. And then last comment here from Coach Miko from the Crusaders. Well done, Comets. They came into our house, kicked our butts, and well done, Eastcott game. You guys are amazing. So it's very, very kind of him. But yeah, so that is pretty much the wrap up of our Eastcott game of the week between the Central Coast Crusaders men and the Sydney Comets men. Lockie, we've got our special guest this week waiting in the green room. Are you ready to bring them on?
I certainly am. 100%.
I think now, just while I prepare my documents here, I think this is the first time in Eastcott game history that we're going to use some different intro music to introduce our special guest. I'm going to quickly play it, and then I'm going to bring our guest on and see if he recognizes it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Can you hear it? All right. Hopefully our listeners now have gotten a bit of a taste of that. I think there's going to be listeners of a certain era that are going to recognize it. But I will start. Let me introduce this guest properly, other than iconic intro music. So, someone is important when they have a detailed Wikipedia page and a colorful basketball career to go with it. So this player grew up in Australia and had a college career, which included 2 years at Washington State alongside Brock Motum. This player also, though, donned the black and white at the 2017 FIBA Asia Cup for New Zealand, alongside the likes of Shea Ili, Ruben Tarangi, and Finn Delaney. And then they also played NBL for the New Zealand Breakers in 2018. And then after playing for the Knox Raiders and Sydney Comets in the former competitions before NBL 1, this player is now in their 4th season with the Maitland Mustangs. So let's bring him on. Hello, our guest today is James Hunter from the Maitland Mustangs. How are you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me. What a banger. What a banger song you played there at the start there.
Yeah, I'm hoping that you recognize that one, and I'm sure you.
Action, maybe is that what I heard?
Correct. We will probably touch on that a little bit more towards the end of the interview, and it will all make a little bit more sense and a full circle moment for our listeners as to why we played that particular intro music. But yeah, how are you now? Do you prefer James, Jim, Jimmy? What can we call you?
Dealer's choice. Everyone has their own name. Coaches seem to gravitate towards Jimmy for some reason. I don't know. Dad used to call me Jimmy, so it's really dealer's choice, I'd say. We've got a couple of Jameses on Maitland, so there's Jimmys, there's Jameses, whatever. It's all good.
Yeah, it's. I imagine the coaches would almost have to try and assign a different nickname to each of the different James, Jims, and Jimmys. Sometimes it's easier just to use last name, right?
Jimmy Hunter. Yeah, a lot of people call me Hunter as well. It's just, it's whatever. But yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Thanks for volunteering to be one of our guests for this season as well. We're glad that you're excited to join us too. But tell us, how are you going and how are you feeling after round 3?
Yeah, good. Slight retool, I would say, for the old Maitland Mustangs. A few pieces out, a few pieces in. So it was always going to be a pretty interesting. See how we go. We kept a lot of the core guys as well. So a lot of the people we've been playing with for a long time and created that strong family sort of brand of basketball. So I think we're building week to week, and we had a rough one at the start, but still competed pretty heavily against some pretty talented NBL guys as well against Illawarra. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really fun season, and the quality's gotten really good in the East, as you've both been chatting about.
Yes, that is correct. But we'll start with our first question. So as a listener of East Got Game, we like to ask our athlete interviews with our bookend questions. Sure. And the first being, tell us how and when your basketball journey began.
How far back? I guess my parents met, and that's probably too far back. Shellhaven Mini Cubs was when I started basketball. I think I was about 4 years old. I was a pretty big lad when I was 4, so I guess it sort of made sense for my parents to get a little extracurricular for me. My brother played, mum dabbled as well, so it was sort of around the family, but never at a super high level. It was Mini Cubs, which was pretty much camp stuff and just around the Shellhaven Tigers gym. I think I was talking to mum about it, and she said I used to stand at half court and cry when the other team scored. So it's good to see that a lot of my basketball skills have retained to the same level. I still use those tactics. But it's Shellhaven, juniors through Shellhaven, and then some of the country under 12s or 14s stuff down in Canberra and Queanbeyan and stuff. And every odd weekend, mum and dad would be driving me to some random place, Goulburn or Queanbeyan or Canberra a lot, or up to Maitland even. So full circle stuff. So
Shellhaven Tigers boy, hey?
Shellhaven Tigers, yep. I was started there and played, I think, up till I went to high school, which would have been year 7. So all the way through.
So lucky you go.
Yeah. So you mentioned. So you say when you went to high school, because we know you went to Cranbrook. Is that where you started high school? Was it Cranbrook, or did you? Just go?
Yeah. Went to school down in Canberra, where I grew up just near Kangaroo Valley, and then older brother went to Cranbrook, and then I got in there as well, and then that's where basketball continued for me.
So were you on scholarship at Cranbrook?
No such thing. Cranbrook didn't do basketball scholarships for a long time. I think for hearing chats and having chats to some of the coaches and stuff there, I think they are starting to now embrace some of that, which was, always an interesting one when you'd come up against sort of Kings or Scots or, anyone that have, or even Newington, got some good friends. Shout out Luke Devlin back in the day at Newington. He was a bit of a powerhouse back there, but, we'd be just doing our best and we did all right. Like Cranbrook competed and did pretty well, but yeah, it's tough when you're not sort of recruiting the best in the state and stuff.
So what was the switch like moving from, the Shoalhaven era, Camberwell up to Cranbrook, eastern suburbs,
big city life. Yeah, a bit of a change of pace. I think I was ready for it. I think, I was getting pretty antsy down in the country town, just trying to, get out and do different things. And the city was, a big thing for me. But, jumping in boarding school was pretty interesting. Got a bit homesick, as, most, I believe, would. But had my older brother there as well, Harry. So that was pretty good. And then got a tap on the shoulder from Steve Whitehead, who I think is still around Cranbrook at the moment doing stuff with the basketball guys. And I think I was in year 7 and he did one of these ones, like, come on, come here. Who's that big fella? So had a bit of a chat to him about basketball and then went through the first and the CAS, the GPS and all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it was a pretty good pathway for me.
Yeah, because I think that was... Oh, you go. Sorry, Locke.
No, sorry, Spoon, you continue.
No, that's my bad. I was just going to say, when you were playing for Cranbrook, I don't think that private school system was a particular pathway back then for basketballers, really, was it? No. And then going to Cranbrook, as you mentioned, not a traditional kind of basketball program, scholarship program, but you had someone like Steve Whitehead able to oversee a development. Did you still have access to more training, better facilities, more cross training and things like that to help your development?
It's actually interesting because my 5-year-old actually does swimming class at Cranbrook now, and I don't know if you guys have ever been to the gym now and seen sort of the facilities, but I think the gym, like the actual weight room there now, the Wallabies and whoever's around, NBA teams work out there. It's like pretty top level. Back when I was there, it's still not too bad, but it reminded more of like an old school weight room sort of get in. The gym was blue floored, like rubbery sort of texture. So, it's not your classic basketball powerhouse school, but, I didn't go to the Cranbrook because of that reason. I went sort of, just for educational stuff. And we had friends in the local towns that went there and sort of really enjoyed boarding and stuff. So yeah, but yeah, I had other ways. Steve got me playing ABA pretty quick as well. So I got to, play with the men essentially when I was in year 10, 11, sort of, got to go to trainings with them. They actually trained at Cranbrook. So that was a big plus for me as well, running down from the boarding house and going up against some of the guys that used to play back then, which was always good for me and my development. So, yeah, there were definitely different pathways and stuff. It wasn't until sort of year 11 and 12 that I was sort of going through the CAS, GPS, CIS, and then New South Wales and Australian Schoolboys sort of stuff, which was also a really great experience and got to play up against some of the best around the state and stuff.
And you mentioned, you coming to the big city, but then when you went to college, you went to Pullman, Washington.
Yeah, I had a pretty colorful college career. I was actually told by my careers counselor that I wouldn't make college basketball because I wasn't on a state team. So shout out to him. No, I won't name and shame. But so I didn't do any of the right core subjects, and I guess I was trying. I always wanted to, and Steve was saying, this is a real option for you if you keep pushing and keep doing well. So I actually went junior college. So I went to a school in Philly, Harcombe College, which was ranked in the nation when I went there. And then 2-year schools have a pretty quick turnaround. So they were no longer ranked in the nation when I was there. So spent a half a year there, and then went to Gillette with a couple of other Aussies. Matt Dick, who was in New South Wales, he was playing back in the day. Reese, who's over playing in the NBL 1 West, I believe. So yeah, lots of great people I met through that, and then went to Washington State through a connection from there, from Gillette College to Washington State, and was there for 2 years. So, and I think boarding set me up a lot for that. I got to I was essentially boarding at college in the same way, and just being ready to sort of go and being in a different place and meeting new people. It wasn't sort of a massive. I imagine it could be pretty daunting to some people that haven't sort of experienced that before.
Have you noticed the shirt that Lockie's wearing for our episode today?
Absolute banger. Washington State, go Cougs. Where'd you even get that? Where'd you procure that shirt?
So there was an Aussie. She was there the same time you were, Rachel Doyle, on the women's soccer team.
Oh, really?
And I have a mate through women's soccer who was at Washington State. So he hooked me up with this.
I love it.
Best merch in NCAA. And a team poster. Yeah. So it's actually a soccer t-shirt.
Look at the logo though. Look at that logo. It's the best. It's the best. And Washington State was actually a crazy it's sort of global. There's lots of international players. There's lots of different people. But I'll be in Hawaii and you'll see someone wearing a Coug shirt and you say go Cougs and they notice it. It's just it's an interesting culture. And got to play with Brock like you mentioned, and there was Dexter Curtis-Drews playing down the south I think at the moment. But so plenty of Aussies, big Aussie connection. I think because Ben Johnson was actually there. So shout out Ben Johnson. I don't know where he is at the moment. I think he's over here somewhere. Maybe I'm not sure.
It's a pretty generic name. Maybe he's in incognito.
Ben Johnson. No, you're exactly right. Exactly right. He's hiding.
What was the culture shock like on and off the court going from JUCO to somewhere like Washington State?
Pretty big, just off sheer facilities and sort of, the professionalism and JUCO was great and a really good opportunity for me. And it got me to the point where, I knew I could play in the NCAA, but going from a junior college in the middle of Wyoming, which is, frozen wheat fields essentially and a mining town, where I was living with literal cowboys who were on the rodeo team, best rodeo team in the nation, I might add. But to go over then to Pullman, which is another smallish town, but everything is college. Everyone has something. I think there's 30,000 people in the town, and 35,000 are at the football games and stuff. So it's a pretty, I guess it's what you define as a college town, frats, sororities, all of that stuff. It was a different level. They got me on a visit, did all that sort of stuff and laminated card with what we were going to do for the weekend and stuff. It was pretty exciting. It was a different level in that respect. And then the games, we were in the Pac-12 at that time. I think it's all shifted now. It's no longer the Pac-12. I think it's something else. But we played Arizona when they were number one in the nation. Gonzaga was always a good one. A lot of those guys came up and went into the NBA as well and stuff. So really crazy experience, to be honest.
Any particular people from your time pre-college when you were playing ABA as a teenager or when you were at college that are that you kind of scratch your head thinking, wow, I got to play against that player back then? Any kind of standouts or anyone even back then you were kind of amazed to be playing against?
I mean, any young kids getting to play early, I think is a really good thing. If you're trying to crack it and make it as a younger player, and you get to play against men who don't hold back because you're not a man. I think that it's really good for you. So those commons practices were heated. They'd always be really good. We had Michael Seckold and the Overs brothers. They'd always be pretty physical, which was really good for development. But then college was crazy. I remember warming up against Arizona and their promo video was just every NBA player that's ever come through the program of Arizona. So it was literally, I think I stopped warming up. I was just oh my gosh, name after name after name after, and they're all just talking about the program and, they've done it for the promo video. And then you've got Aaron Gordon touching his feet, reverse dunking on the other side of the court. It's it's a bit of a, this is crazy type situation. We got absolutely smoked that game, so we won't even talk about that. But hey, there's plenty of players from that, Pac-12 that were really, really still Zach LaVine was at UCLA. There's a lot of dudes that were playing really are still playing at a really high level. So plenty of pinch me moments, I would say. But I mean the whole thing was just amazing. It's a pretty good experience, I would say.
And then you got to jump into another pretty cool experience. You were part of the New Zealand team competing at the FIBA Asia Cup in 2017. So obviously someone who has dual citizenship or was able to play for New Zealand because of one of their parents, which we can touch on now if you want, or we can touch on more later, up to you. But yeah, tell us a little bit more about that FIBA experience. How did you get the call up and what was it like when you were there?
Yeah, that was awesome. So I came out of college wanting to play pro. So ended up doing a year in Spain, played for 9 months over there in one of the lower leagues, which was, again, a crazy experience. I think there's a lot of European leagues that are basically built on like opportunity, where can you get to with this and that sort of thing. So it was a bit of that sort of opportunity. And then it was actually my wife who we realized that the New Zealand league is really strong, and I'm dad's a Kiwi, so I'm half Kiwi, so I could go and play in that as a local. So I actually went to the New Zealand league and played over there for a good 2 or 3 years with the Manawatu Jets and Southland Sharks with Judd Flavel, who's the current coach of the Tall Blacks at the moment. So that was a really big opportunity for me, and just to get in around those guys, and they're shorter seasons, so it was another sort of good opportunity. And then had some really good seasons and had a good New Zealand Select Tour, which is basically just trips to China, and it's more for the younger guys coming up, like they call them the young TB tours and stuff. And then got the call up for that one, the Asia Cup in Lebanon. So that was a pretty exciting opportunity. We got to go and play over there. The craziest, loudest gym I've ever been in my life to this date. Like it was, I still remember guys hanging off the balcony that was pretty high. Like they would for sure been hurt. They fell off, banging drums, screaming. We did the haka before every game, so you couldn't hear the guy standing right next to you. Like you're obviously trying to do it all at the same time, but I just hadn't experienced that sort of loudness and sort of just that environment before. And then they had a guy called El Khatib, the Tiger, who was he's like royalty in Lebanon. So anytime he touched the ball or scored, it was just mayhem, which was super cool. So that was, and we did a bunch of China tours and sort of got to experience that sort of thing and experience the culture of the Tall Blacks, which was, anytime you get to put a country's singlet on, I think it's a huge opportunity.
It's something I've always wanted to know, but never talked to a New Zealand national team athlete about. Doing the haka before a game, just how does it change you mentally just going into the game? How much does it get you up for it?
It's a hell of a way to go into a game, I'll tell you that much. So a lot of the pre sort of tournaments and getting the guys together and stuff, you learn all about the culture and the strength and the meaning behind everything. It's sort of, obviously you do that as a sign of respect for the other team, but you get to learn sort of the meaning behind all of the, what the culture means and sort of the different sort of words of the haka and what it all means and how it plays into sort of the overall picture of the Tall Blacks brotherhood, I suppose. So, getting to sit there and learn from, guys like Paulie and Mika Vakona and like all of those kind of guys, I think, it's a pinch me sort of moment, I think. And it's just sort of like, you see it from the past, you see those guys going up against teams that they probably shouldn't be competing with and beating them and sort of, so it's like another energy source that they reach for. And I really enjoyed that. I think it's a hell of a way to start a game, to be perfectly honest.
And then might be a little bit of a silly question, but given that was your first time in the Tall Blacks and you grew up here, knowing that part of being in the Tall Blacks is doing the haka before a game, is it part of your almost like orientation to the Tall Blacks team and culture and program to be taught properly how to do the haka? Like at what stage do you get pulled aside and go, okay, this is how it goes, this is what you got to do, this is what it means? Because I'm sure they're not going to set you up to be like, oh wait, it's our first game and you don't know how to do it. Like follow along.
And make sure you can do it. And there's specific ones. So the All Blacks have their own for rugby and basketball's specific to basketball. So they're different, and it really embraces into the multicultural. So it's they make sure you understand it and actually know the meaning behind everything you're saying as well, which is super important because, it's not just, obviously it's a bit of a spectacle and it gets, it's an interesting thing, but, the reason why you're doing it is like a shout out to the past and all the players that have come before you and all the players that will come ahead. Like, it is a real sort of brotherhood type situation. So yeah, no, they make sure, and you understand what it means when you do it as well.
And then following that, you moved into the NBL with the Breakers. So tell us about that experience.
Yeah, that was awesome. I think I was in a hotel lounge, I think, and just got a tap on the shoulder to chat to Paulie a little bit, and got that opportunity coming off during that sort of Tall Blacks kind of situation, or maybe it was a select tour or something. So yeah, obviously I think people's basketball careers are all momentum based, and so when you're on a bit of a hot streak, it feels good, and it's sort of like great to get that next thing. So yeah, that was awesome. Just getting to go in and experience the culture again there as that team and that era, another sort of, they were really sort of tuned in. A lot of the TB's players were playing for that Breakers team as well. So, I think just seeing that level and getting to play there and just sort of experiencing, the NBL in that time frame and getting to train against those guys and play every day and learn from people like, I think Kirk Penny was on our team, Mika, Tom Abercrombie, Finn Delaney, all my brothers, all extremely fun to play with and just see what professional basketball was all about. So, I think it was a really cool experience for me, and just going around and playing different teams and stuff was exciting. I didn't play overly much in the NBL, but, it was still a really cool experience for me.
And what kind of lessons do you learn coming up against those guys? I mean, college is a fairly professional environment, but I imagine NBL is, again, another step higher.
You just pick up tips and tricks. I think, I was chatting to Kirk, who he was in X number of years in professional basketball and played in he played in the NBA even, and played in top level Spain. And, I think it's just really approaching things professionally and really focusing on what you're doing. And, all of their warm-ups were pretty on point, and they'd really be sort of focused on what they were doing. And I think we actually had a pretty good season, to be honest. I think we got reasonably close, lost some games we probably shouldn't have, but that I think the NBL has come a long way even since that point, to be honest. It's a big deal now. Competing against NBA teams is a different thing. But yeah, I think just getting to experience it, just being around those guys, I think it's a really good sort of place to be.
Because it's so easy for us to talk about your career or an athlete's career on paper of played at a high level as a junior, made some Australian junior teams, went to college, had a good college career, explaining the steps up to the pros sounds easy, but when you're doing it in practice, it's actually very different. Even when athletes go from playing youth league for a few years and they may be starting 5, main scorer in youth league, just to go up to NBL 1 is a big jump.
Huge jump.
I don't think people realize. But so in your experience of going up a level each time in your career, so going from college to NBL, like Lockie was talking about, what are some of those things that you noticed that was so different? For me, going from ABA level up for WNBL, the biggest difference for me was pace and physicality.
Yeah.
I remember there was a time at a training session where I was literally sprinting as hard as I possibly could, where I felt like if I was a machinery, my joints would be busting. And I still couldn't keep up with Nat Hurst. But to be fair, it's Nat Hurst. She's got jets in her shoes. And that to me, I was like, whoa, this is really the pros now. This is really that level up from ABA. Did you have any of those kinds of moments or times where you noticed this, where you're like, this is a big jump?
For sure, definitely. I think when you even make that jump, sort of ABA or NBL 1, let's say to the pros, that's people's full-time jobs. People are there to make a living for their family. It's a make a point sort of, it's get after it and practice, take someone's spot type situation. Obviously you're competing to win a championship as a team, but I think the more competitive and the best sort of, environments probably around the NBL are those where it's sort of people are coming in and getting challenged or trying to challenge. And, and I think you're right, the physicality and the pace with just the speed of everything, it just moves faster. You've got guys that have been around the league for a long time. You've got, Kirk Penny's shot was instant almost. He'd have it and then you just let it go and it'd be like a blink. Like it's like, and he was automatic for so many years. So like, just, and then I think also like as you're competing and trying to break in and, like I know for a lot of guys like who are on the fringe or really close, like learning what it is you do that can contribute to an NBL team, I think is super important. Like, obviously if you're on an NBL 1 team to absolutely killing it, you're probably not going into an NBL team sort of to have 30 points. You probably are the hustle guy or you rebound really well. So I think that's a really important thing just to be keeping in mind, because like if you know what you do really well and you do it really well on a day-to-day basis and outperform people, like that's how you sort of look at Alex Tischer, like he did exactly that this season. So yeah, no, but yeah, definitely, it's a humbling experience. There's some pretty talented people running around the NBL for sure.
It's a very humbling experience. That's a great way to describe it. And even though you mentioned before that you didn't play lots of minutes, you were still there, and I'm sure your name is still on the alumni NBL alumni list, so it still counts.
The Tall Blacks have a number. I don't know what number Tall Black I am, but I'm still there, and I'm still very close with a lot of those guys. Finn Delaney, Ethan Rosvach, like Daron, a lot of those guys are I consider them my brothers and catch up with them whenever I can. So yeah, it is a real sort of family sort of thing. But yeah, no, 100%. It's all exciting and learning experiences and things you can just sort of take with you as you go.
That's right. Still counts. Still counts.
Count it. Still count it. In 20 years, I'll have started, so don't you worry about it.
But now coming back home to talk about the beloved Maitland Mustangs. It took the Mustangs 3 attempts to finally get over the line in the grand final, having lost the previous 2 grand finals by 3 points each. So where was that moment that you realized you wouldn't win last year's grand final? Wait, am I reading this right? Where does that moment? Where does that moment?
You didn't win. I hope we won. I think.
Yeah.
So where does that moment when it's fourth quarter and you're up by 20 odds, when you realise you're actually going to win it? Where does that
okay. There you go. Yeah. Lockie landed the plane.
100%. I think 2 years losing by 3, there was a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of anxiety about that sort of situation. Like, it definitely fuels the fire, like to have that happen 2 years in a row. And, really feel like basketball, that is the game it is, right? Like one team shows up on one day and can win a championship. Like it really is that. So Canberra always super tough to play. Like, they've got their core guys and they're always a challenging team to play. So, and I've heard like people chatting about the game before and like, obviously watched it a few times and stuff, but we're sort of expecting that comeback sort of thing and sort of ready to hopefully sort of keep pushing. And then, I don't know exactly what point, but it was seemingly out of reach and just sort of looking around and seeing guys' faces and stuff. And, when you've been in the trenches, I guess, for that many years with the same group, like it means a lot. It definitely means a lot. And, winning a championship is always a huge thing. And it was scenes after that. It was excellent. It was excellent after that.
And I mean, losing 2 so close, does doubt start to seep in? Do you start thinking, what if we don't get one?
I mean, I feel like it does a little bit, but like, if you just went in blind confidence the whole time and just never had that thought, like, some people might do that and it might work for them. But, I think they're all learning experiences. Like, even though we lost sort of both grand finals, both seasons I look at really positively because, I got to be with those guys and sort of we got to work towards something and we got so close twice. So to keep everyone around and sort of keep fighting for it, I think, obviously we lost Willie and Matt this year, but, those guys were massive for us. And I think it's all just learning experiences. every season it's its own thing, and I've been lucky enough to win before, and like I won in New Zealand with the Southland Sharks, which was huge as well. So but it is basketball in the end. Like you win games, you lose games. You think about it for a long time, but yeah, it all comes out in the end, so it's fun.
And how much do you think your role has changed? So this is now your 4th consecutive season with the Stangers. And we forgot to ask, actually, sorry, Lockie, forgot to cover your question. But what helped you decide to sign with Maitland initially? And then what helped you decide to stay?
Of course. Yeah. So I came back to Sydney after that Knox Raiders season to have a baby. Well, I didn't have a baby. My wife had a baby. And then we just to be around family and be close to that. And then, so Comets was my junior club. I was actually playing with Comets while I was at Cranbrook as well. Played with them for a season. Then COVID happened and, the whole world literally went on pause. So they decided not to have a team in the league the next year. So I was sort of looking around and wondering where that left me. And then was having a few chats to some of the teams. And then actually, I think I just received a call out of the blue from old Lukey Boyle, Coach Boyle. And he said, do you want to come be a Mustang? And I said, well, that sounds pretty fun. Like how would that all work? And we just got to chatting, and, he's been super supportive through the whole thing and got me up there. And being from the country, I think there's a certain culture around country clubs. Like all the fans get super behind it. It's a tough place to play. Like same with Albury, same with Canberra. Like, there's a culture around country clubs, and all the juniors come up through it, and just seeing the kids' faces on game days and stuff, like, it obviously means a lot to all of that community. So to get around that culture, I think is really good. And I think the city clubs are sort of really improving now as well. But yeah, like it's just been a really good environment, super family friendly. My son loves going up on game days and playing with Cliffy's kids and coach's kids and stuff. So it's just a really good culture. I'm not even his favorite player, so we won't talk about that necessarily, but Cliffy or Will Cranston was his favorite, so I'll have to check with him this season. Maybe it could be me, but we'll see.
Yeah, wow, that's savage.
Yeah, he says what he likes. We walked into the North Basketball Stadium for the first time for a Maitland game, and he looked around and the lights were in his eyes, and he said, I love this. He said, I love this.
Oh, wow. Start him young. Got to get him in young.
Yep. Off you go. Let's get you signed up. No, but yeah, like just the love from those guys and just being around. Like, it's a family. It does feel like a family when you're playing with them. And yeah, that's what's kept me around.
So how soon are we signing up your son for Learn to Play?
Right now. He's signed up. No, he's doing Little Boomers. It's actually, we've got to talk about that. East Sydney needs some more opportunities for the young fellas. In
terms of court space or programs, do you think?
There's some programs, and I think it is picking up. But yeah, just like there doesn't seem to be a lot of basketball games. Like you can do like little trainings and stuff, but like soccer, you look at every soccer pitch around Sydney, and there's like 1,000 kids playing soccer. But I think it's obviously a space issue as well, like available courts and stuff. But yeah, I think there are people trying to do it. Like there's a Cranbrook thing as well, but we'll get there. I'll start my own.
Yeah, not a bad idea, given that I think there's an ongoing kind of debate or kind of a current affair, if you will, in the basketball landscape. However many thousands of kids are on wait lists to either enter a team or start a comp or something, but there's just 100%. Not enough court space to meet the demand. So look,
Knox Raiders in Melbourne had the biggest junior like the most junior teams of any club in Australia, I'm pretty sure. So, I think if the court space is there and there's enough coaches, I think there would be the demand would be there for sure.
Yeah, I went down to Knox a couple of years ago and was blown away by the size of the joint. Crazy. Like every junior squad has like 3 or 4, and it goes down and down. It's crazy. It's crazy down there.
And I was interested to know as well, how do you feel like your role has changed over the last 4 years with the Stangers?
It has changed a bit. I think I was originally brought in, I'd been playing for a number of years and, had some good experiences. And, I think we had a few early, like not every season is a clean sort of, we're the powerhouse every year, like by any means. Like I think the first year we squeaked in 7th maybe, or like whatever it was after a point differential type thing. But like, we started the season pretty hit or miss, and we all had to sit down and sort of, talk about what we needed out of each other and stuff. So, definitely try to bring sort of a leadership element to the team, but I just try and get after it every day. Like I think you never know how many years you're going to play basketball for, and it's super fun to get out there and play. I joke with the refs before every game, and I say a bit of organized sport. Like here we go, a little bit more organized sport, and some of them love it, and some of them look at me with a blank face. But it's still fun. So yeah, I think I'm still an option in the post. I can still score and get after it, and it keeps me fit. So yeah, like my role has changed somewhat in the team, but with the scoring from Will and Maddie leaving as well, like I think we all have a slightly different role this year as well.
Lockie, I know that I pinched one of your questions, so I'm going to handball the next one. Well, the next one is actually yours, to be fair.
The next one is mine. I know you want me to ask this one because we're going to switch to away from basketball, because you come from a very musically talented family, because your dad still is a member of Dragon.
Yeah, bass player Dragon, he is.
And your mum wrote Age of Reason by John Farnham, as well as a bunch of Dragon songs.
Mm-hmm.
Did you pick up any of that talent?
I mean, look, I dabble here and there. Like, I was never going to try and pursue it full time, I guess. But it's like growing up, music was a massive part of we actually weren't allowed to listen to loud music in the car. It's like they'd had too much music. So they were like, just wait till we get to the highway. I think their ears are blown out from all the music. But it's crazy. Like, I think Dragon was still together when we were young, and we went up and saw a show as a 3-year-old, 4-year-old type stuff. So, all crazy memories, and, they still gig. So to go to gigs and watch them play and stuff it's pretty crazy. And people are like, it's crazy. Like, you must be so happy to be the son of a Dragon. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just dad. But it's you hear it in every kind of funny pub or, walking to the supermarket or something. It's like that sort of music. It's like your radio tunes, your cover band sort of songs and stuff. And then mum, super gifted songwriter, wrote for John Farnham, and she wrote, I think they wrote the first song for Keith Urban as well back in the day. So some big songs, but I can pick up the guitar, but like, I'm not gonna do it now because I know you want me to. But no.
Speaking of picking up guitars, my dad was actually a roadie for Dragon.
No way. Full Correct. Circle. How good. Good.
Back when they first moved to Sydney.
I love it. The stories are insanity from that era. Like just playing for like mincemeat and stuff at the pubs and like just like, I guess I pursue basketball, so it was kind of good to chat to him about like, how do you keep going? Like, how do you make it and stuff? And he just, randomly give me little pieces of advice. Like, you just keep going until someone gives you an opportunity. You just don't stop, essentially is what you do. But it's cool to see him still play.
Yeah. And look, I did read, obviously, on your detailed Wikipedia page that, or maybe it was actually the link to one of your parents' Wikipedia page, that your mum also wrote the theme music.
Who writes Wikipedia? Who's on there doing this? Because all my details are on there, and it's almost concerning at some point.
And we did it. Luckily, we did establish. So also thank you for clearing that up before we went to air. That it says on your Wikipedia that you grew up in New Zealand, but you didn't, as you clarified.
It's on Wikipedia, so who knows?
So who knows? It could be true.
Outside in high school, so it's hilarious.
But is it true that your mum wrote the theme song to the original Heartbreak High TV series?
Dad. Oh, well, I mean, Mum might have wrote it. I'm not sure, but Dad did the music. So in between, the Dragon disbanded for a while and didn't play after like basically when we were in primary school. But yeah, he did all of the music for the original Heartbreak High. So, you know, he'd be over in the studio watching like I'd see all the B-roll of Heartbreak High, and he'd be like playing something, or like he got pretty exotic in that. If you ever go back and watch it, there's like some pretty interesting like transitional bits. But no, he did all that music and that song slaps, to be very honest. It's a great one.
Oh yeah, it's great, and I'm glad that you recognize it straight away when I played it before as your intro.
They should have put it on the new one. It's on Netflix. It's back, but I don't think they use the same song.
No, I think it's a different theme song. But to be fair, they have been playing the original Heartbreak High during the day, I think on one of the ABC channels, because when I'm on my lunch break in the staff room, that's what I'm turning on.
Smashing Heartbreak High.
Yeah, in my lunch break.
Angsty 90s TV shows. I love it.
Yeah, educating all the new grad nurses of what this is and why you should watch it. But yeah, full circle moment there for our audience that hopefully now makes sense as to why we played that theme song earlier. But you did mention that you do dabble in a little bit of guitar here and there, but can we go as far to say that you're the Isaac Humphries of the NBL One East, or maybe not quite yet?
Absolutely not. I dabble. And I do mean dabble, like I pick it up at home and I noodle, if you will. But no, it's more of just a hobby, like, you know, play Blackbird by the Beatles, that sort of stuff.
That's pretty hard, that song, so that's impressive.
Yeah, but you learn one song and then that's all you do. So yeah, that's that level.
If you're gonna learn one song though, I'm glad you made it a good one and a challenging one.
Very true, very true.
But yeah, that was a really nice kind of light bulb kind of shocking moment when we learned that about you. So that's very, very cool that you have
It's got me free cab rides in the past. Sometimes my teachers were like, is that onto your dad? So like it's a hilarious, like it's almost like a bit of pub trivia or something. Like it's good to bring out at different times.
Yeah, I hope one day they say that at pub trivia, because I'll be loaded with the answer.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah, for a change. Have you gotten any other perks from being the son of the parents that you are? You know, in terms of, did you ever get out of having to do homework, or did you get extra marks on an assignment or anything like that?
No, none of that sort of stuff. Like they just mention it. Like they just be like, oh, I went to school listening to your dad's music. Like I drove in the car listening to the mix album. I never really, you know, I've had a funny one when we were young. We were in Bomaderry Woolworths or something, and the checkout guy was like, "Are you Todd from Dragon?" And just full blank face was like, "Nah, sorry, mate." I just walked off and I was like, okay.
He's just like, I don't want to be Todd from Dragon for today. Today I'm just going to be James's dad getting the groceries. I just want a day off. Have a day off.
No, he's a low-key kind of guy. I love him.
Oh, that's very, very cool. Very cool part of your family history as well. And such a breadth of talent in your family. You've covered creative and sporting talent in your family.
Yeah, my brothers own a creative agency. So yeah, there's lots of creativity, music, sort of, you know, all that sort of stuff within the family. Yeah,
very, very cool indeed. And the last question that we like to bookend our athlete interviews or our guest interviews with is, tell us a little bit more about James Hunter off the court.
The man, the myth, the legend. I'm a dad, so I've got a 5-year-old. So, you know, a lot of time spent sort of running around with him, and he's just started school and he's doing a great job and sort of really going well in there. Husband, I guess, you know, good support from the family I actually live in Sydney, so I drive to Maitland to play. So there's a lot of travel, I suppose, with the role, but and then do creative recruitment and for a job as well. Fell into recruitment like literally everybody, but yeah. And then dabble in music. I don't know. Yeah, I try to be pretty around the place doing different things.
When you say creative recruitment, tell us a little bit more about that. What does that mean?
So designers, digital designers, UX, UI, creative directors, basically any marketing or creative services for agencies or in-house or any brands. Companies come to us and get us to find talent, essentially. So they work with, just find permanent roles or freelance for different companies.
Yeah, that's really cool. I imagine as well, being recruiting in that industry or being a creative in that industry and trying to make yourself available to find work and go from contract to contract has probably changed a lot in the last 10 plus years because of the internet.
Hugely, and AI and what that all means, and sort of like, and I think when big economic things happen, I think, creative and marketing budgets are sort of maybe early on sort of the things to be sort of slimmed a bit, but it's a crazy space. I got into it because my brother's had a creative agency, so I was like, I'm going to get you some people, no worries. And then also just to have a tangible thing to look at, like a portfolio, so look at some design work and be like, it's all subjective anyway, but I felt that was more my speed than I was doing aged care before that. Nursing, actually. Did you say you're a nurse or becoming a nurse?
No, I'm an occupational therapist, but I just like to
OT. Even more in demand.
OT.
They were the big role. They were super in demand when I was doing aged care recruitment.
Yeah, look, if you need an OT, you know one.
Hit me up about 5 years ago, and I probably would have found you some different stuff. But it's good. Doing good work.
I just like to influence the pop culture references of yesteryear onto the new grad nurses, because I know they're not going to know what I'm talking about, and it's fun to make them
part of the onboarding.
It's part of the onboarding.
Watching Heartbreak High for 30
minutes.
Right.
It's a rite of passage. I did have an OT student last year in her early 20s, and I had to explain to her the show Come Dine With Me because she'd never seen it before, and it was on in the break room, and I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. How have you not ever seen this show, and how old are you making me feel right now?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's alarming. It's alarming. But hey, look, we push on. We push on.
Yeah, I know. We've got bigger fish to fry. Let's be honest. Including you've got Easter break as well now for the Stangers, which hopefully I can't imagine Coach Boyle is going to be having any training on Easter, or is it all systems go for the
We'll have normal training sort of across the 2 weeks, I believe. There'll be a little break, obviously, get home, everyone see their families and stuff. But yeah, I think it's always the Easter break is a good time to just sort of reassess, see where you're up to, see what's happened in the last 3 games. We're watching a lot of film as a team, so, trying to pick apart where we can improve and stuff, because, it's, you can be a bit hot and cold in certain games and stuff. But yeah, it's an exciting time, and I think big things from the Stangers for sure this season. Big things.
Stangers, because you've got when we come back on that Anzac Day round, for round 4, you've got a game at home against the Spiders.
Hornsby, yeah.
No. And then you've got a game away.
Comets, right?
With Comets, yeah. So
see you there.
See you there.
Lockie will be on the mic.
Excellent.
For your Comets game, so they'll be very lucky. Maybe that's a game that I'll also have to tune into. But yeah, how are you feeling ahead of those 2 games in round 4?
I just think the level of the league's picked up hugely. I think obviously all the big signings and stuff, you want to play against the best possible people you can, and sort of I think getting to play against those guys and sort of even I just don't think there's easy games anymore, to be perfectly honest. Everyone's sort of bringing it on different weeks, and I think you saw Newey beat Illawarra. It's a really, you've got to show up and you got to play your game and you got to do things the way you scouted them and really focus, because there's not really any easy games anymore.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you as a guest, especially representing the Stangers, as we always like to try and cover nearly every team as best we can every season. But yeah, thank you for volunteering to be a guest on EGG. Thank you for listening and following along as well online. But yeah, and we wish you the best of luck for round 4 and enjoy your Easter break.
Appreciate it. You too, guys. Have a lovely one. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you kindly. And I think just before as we wave goodbye to our friend Jim Hunter, just before we wrap up, Lockie, we do need to cover our good eggs of the week.
We certainly do need to cover our good eggs of the week. And I think we've both gone for teams rather than players this week.
Again, our telepathic powers coming to fruition. Who have you got this week for round 3's good egg?
Well, you already had a men's one written down, so I chose a women's one. And I went with the Hornsby Ku-ring-gai Spiders. Because, I mean, last year they were on the come up a little bit in the back end, but this year they've gone out, they've started 3-0. They've taken, they beat Comets. They took advantage of a Bankstown side that was missing a couple of players. They've just come out and started really well and already put themselves right amongst it. And when we talk about the league getting better and better, and we were talking about during preseason, every time we mentioned, this team could make finals, and then you go and look at 5 others have improved. Hornsby were one of those teams where you just think, okay, this is a team that's improved. They went out and they brought back Nicole Hutchins. Jessie Mayhall is going to another level. Kira Hudson, her running mate, is looking good as well. They've got other pieces around there. And, I mean, this is a team that, when you think 2013, they went undefeated in the regular season and lost the grand final to Illawarra. 2014, they won it all. Central Coast came in and stole a bunch of their players. Well, stole them back. The other half went to Norths. And since then, they've basically been, scraping together half-decent teams. But now they're looking good. They've got Ayana Bay back, so they've got good import. They picked up Lucy Mead. I think that is an absolutely stellar, underrated signing. Yes, very good Hornsby Ku-ring-gai Spiders. Looking forward to seeing what's to come.
Yeah, I reckon that's a really excellent pick for good egg for round 3, Lockie. I have to completely agree with everything you mentioned about Hornsby. And the only thing I'll add is that it looks like they're having so much fun and really enjoying playing with each other as well, which is something that you don't always see in teams when you get to this level.
And the best part is they look like they were having fun last year. But even before they went on that winning streak at the end of the season, 10 games in, they were low down the table. They still look like they were having fun.
Yeah, I think that's really important for developing a good team culture. But yeah, like you mentioned, I also picked a team for good egg of the week, and it was the Newcastle Falcons men's team for that huge win over Illawarra. Primarily, because they looked like they were really struggling at the start of the season to really get their engine going and firing for this 2025 season. I mean, we just heard James Hunter say there are no easy games anymore in the East. The competition level and caliber keeps getting better and better with every year. So they were really showing early signs of being left behind. But to turn it around within 2 weeks, to take out a top dog like the Illawarra Hawks in such convincing fashion as well, tick, 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 tick. So that's why the Newcastle Falcons men get my good egg for round 3. Well done, fellas. Very well done. And just before, great work, Falcons. Falcons over Hawk. It's the battle of the birds of prey. But
well, I call it the Steel City Showdown because the avian affray is Manly Newcastle's. There's just so many bird teams.
So many bird teams. The Steel City Showdown makes a lot more sense. Now, just before we wrap up, I just wanted to say that we have 14 subscribers on YouTube, so we are slowly going up every episode. So just a reminder to please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We do have I'm not going to say unrealistic, but we do have the very ambitious goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. But we did reach another milestone this week, Lockie. We've ticked over 700 followers now on Instagram. So I reckon that's worth celebrating for us.
Yeah, good.
So
that's really good.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for tuning in as always, following us on Instagram as we do our best to bring you all the X's and O's and insights from the NBL 1 East week to week. But Lucky, sign us off.
Don't sleep on the East.